thank you everyone for taking the time. That's number one. Then it's quite interesting because he shared with me, I asked Ethan, I said, hey, I want to be better at speaking. So he shared with me an amazing course. So I did my course, brilliant. And it starts by telling you, you need to know your audience. And so I said, oh, I did a presentation, but I've made some assumptions. So I went to search the audience, by the way, which was quite funny. And I got even more confused, which is why I didn't know, because it was for engineers, practitioners, builders, leaders working in cloud-native platform, open source ecosystem, GenAI, data, and agentic AI. I'm going to try to make something useful for everyone. We're going to see how that goes. Here we go. So, well, yes, I work in FinOps. I'm trying to be an independent voice in FinOps to keep my independence, because almost everyone's trying to sell you something at one point or another. So I'm trying to I talk with everyone, but I might disagree with some. I've decided to go with the opinionated things. I'm just gonna, for the last 10 years, no, not last 10 years. I've been in IT since you could hear the modem make lots of sounds before connecting to the internet. And that was a while ago. 395. Yes, 33.6 or 53.7. Yes, I had that. In the last 10 years, I really started deciding to get out of my cave, which was my room, and go back and start talking to human beings. And in particular, I found that it was extremely interesting to see how money was interacting with IT. And so I started that way, and I still find it extremely interesting because it's a complex problem. You have a mix of people, you have obviously money, you have tech, you have software. It is so complicated, and I love it. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years roughly. It's called FinOps. When I started, it was not called FinOps. Now it is called FinOps. And that's cool. But in this case, I'm going to talk about some sort of AI, but I'm going to try to bring it from angles you've not thought about, which are not technical ones. And in particular, it was very interesting that there is a story. I was talking with a teacher, that was 3 years ago, I think, a teacher, and she was asking me for primary school, can we use AI in education? Or is it, because everyone is at the moment against it, is there a good use of it? And I was trying to find a solution to finding one version of it, and really the reality is it came up to be an interesting thing, which is if you go to an exam, what you want is for people to keep their humanity and use all their human capability. And we say human, it's people capability. And so I've said, okay, take one topic, ask ChatGPT what it thinks about that topic. Write me 4 paragraphs, like a 12 years old, of that. Give that result to all your students. And you can highly say at that point, that is average. There is nothing new in this. That's what I can get in 30 seconds of ChatGPT on the topic. And so, but you give that, and the thing you ask people to do is now you add value. Add something. Add one more paragraph that are going to make this document valid. And the consequence of all of this for me was to think that AI is probably going to help us reduce mediocrity. Because as people, we will take the baseline, what AI can provide. You need to add value on top of it. You can't just stay with, you cannot be lower than that. And that, I think, might be quite an interesting thing for the future. But the other thing that was discussed before also is that if you leave AI to its own demise, it's going to become more and more complex. I've asked AI to I say, hey, it was some years ago trying the first coding. It was copy-paste between ChatGPT and my editor. It was very rough, no editing at the time. And it was really cool because I would ask AI and say, look, I'm going to feed you a billing data and I want some validation outside of that. And I ended up with a plugging system, a backplane, the size of what was created, and that's what we were discussing before. If you send a very small prompt, AI is not going to simplify it. It's going to complicate it. And it's going to make it super, super more complicated and harder for you to read. And as this is also normally a community of open source people, part of the thing is that one of the superpower of open source is the fact that you have 1,000 eyes on a bug. When something is discovered, you have all the community looking for that thing, and it's going to be discovered. But if you start not being able to read the code anymore, then you start having problems. Because if you don't want to change these 1,000 eyes by an AI system, because AI is going to correct. It's going to try to correct things by adding. It's extremely hard to ask an AI system, at least for my tests, to reduce stuff. If you ask an AI system, I have this code, and I have this problem, it's going to add code to go around that problem. Almost never trying to say, oh, that's a problem, remove the line. Never happens, almost, at least for me. Okay? And in the same way of open source, my job is to express and talk with people. And I don't want AI to complicate whatever I have to say. So it's extremely useful for me, for example, for thinking. But then after how many versions I have of this, or how many I've done another thing, I have style guides. I think I have potentially 200 pages, which I didn't read. Okay? You end up, by default, with complexity. You all with me until then? Cool. Let me go back to my notes, if I can find them, which is going to be quite cool. So I'm going to try to share some things which I found useful to try to contain AI to do whatever I want in a way that I can express, share, or understand. I don't always need that, but very often I've discovered that it's extremely useful to go back. And this is also applied to code. And this requires you to think. And it's extremely useful to start thinking, and I don't have the t-shirt today, but I have a t-shirt with behind say, thinking helps. It's true. It's quite often the time. It's good to stop and think. So let's start with one thing. We're going to go back to good old habits. I mean, okay? There are things that everyone tells us we should be doing, and we absolutely refuse to do. We know it's good, but we don't like it. And that's why there is a website that is called lastminute.com, because we like the idea of I'm just going to go, being instinctive. The thing is, it's really cool if you have the time, but most of the thing, you need to do some planning. Planning is boring, let's be very clear. I've done project manager, never again. But it is boring, yet quite often it gives you an edge. What the edge it gives you really is not about the planning, is when you start separating, when you start separating the thinking, and I had quite a nice slide. Let's see if I can find it out. I'll just show you that way. It's going to be easier. The thinking from the doing. How do I get this full screen? Here we go. Okay. That one, thinking. This one, the doing. Most of the time, you end up in a bad place. If you do without doing the thinking first, it doesn't work. The interesting bit is when you start thinking about it, you discover it's everywhere. So I used to follow a to-do methodology, which is quite well known. It's called GTD, getting things done. I've done it for 25 years, etc. And one of the things you discover is you need to. What is that? All good?
Yeah. Sorry, just turning off the TV.
Not me.
There we go.
One thing that is very interesting is when you start seeing that even for your organization, all the systems will start separating the thinking from the doing. You start thinking, you start collecting all the stuff you're supposed to do, you have massive lists, then you need to go through these lists and decide where can I do that and put them into boxes, so when you do something, you don't have to think about the stuff. You don't have to think about what to do, because if you start thinking about what you do, you're just going to do the most urgent or the one that is just popping up in your head exactly at that time. Because we're really bad at remembering stuff. Our brain is made for thinking, but it's not made for remembering, which is why I always forget the milk at home, or when I go and buy batteries. When you buy batteries, you know you need batteries, you completely forget as soon as you are in the supermarket. It's always happened. So my first advice to you guys, and it applies also to AI, which is start to do the thinking before the doing. Don't just jump onto your tab and say, I want a website. Take your time to think about what you want. And this is not just for AI. AI makes it so many assumptions. We'll do all the work for you, but you know it's going to be wrong. So take the time, separate the thinking from the doing. And the interesting bit, and I have 2 experiments for you. First is you can see that all the new tools that are being used at the moment, that are being created, the Cairo of the AWS, the VS Code, the Cursor, or even Cloud Code, now they all have a planning methodology. They all force you to go through Cloud. Cairo, which is the one from Amazon, really forces you. See, I'm not doing anything until you've planned and potentially you even read the plan. Okay, because we were burning tokens to the max for absolutely no reason. So it's not just me, it's really the industry is going into that direction, which is quite interesting. And the other one is I forgot already. Bad. So okay, so for now, please, every time you need to you remember that every time you need to make your output useful or readable by humans, and people, now I'm going to stop saying humans, because it looks like we're aliens. By people, you need to constrain the AI. And I'm going to explain you how I constrain the AI to do that, because it's a pain. The second thing is take the time to think ahead. And it's not just about thinking ahead about this, oh, I want a website this big. No, start setting what are the rules you want AI to follow every single time you're going to need to use it. Okay? Back to the book. And yes, I've completely butchered the training that you kindly sent me because I'm trying to abandon that at this point in time. The interesting thing for control is, so in particular recently, I was trying to build a FinOps tool. No way, that's my job. And the interesting bit about being this FinOps tool, the first time I tried, I was very free. I had done some thinking of what I wanted. I want a forecasting thing. I want a cloud budget thing. I want a brilliant top. And it came out with beautiful code that I cannot read. First, because it decided that Python is the only language that exists on the world, and you're there, no, please do me something else. But overall, it just gets you an overcomplicated thing. So I tried another approach, which is the one I'm going to share with you, because it really helped me. I can still read my code, which is my code. I can still read the code I've asked whatever agent to do. And it was by simply setting, and this is also related to the fact that we are in an open source group, was about, I went back to the basic. I went back to the shell in particular, which I love, the shell. And it's to say, I'm going to show you all of you. Sorry, should not show the screen first. But it is, you go back to set the basic principles you're going to work on. In my case, the basic principle is the stuff that worked in the past. Also because I'm probably nostalgic and old and so on. Happy days, I like the stuff I used to like. And I start saying, what is something that is contained? So the rules are this, can show, I'm going to follow the Unix philosophy. Okay, I'm going to make it very simple. I want everything to do one thing only, and well. I don't want pieces of code that do multiple stuff. I want one everything. If you need to do a forecasting and importing the data and exporting I want 3 tools. I want this to be composed with pipe. If you're familiar with it, is that you have all the input coming from whatever standard input, outputs thrown on the screen, and you have a way to take that output from the screen and say, no, instead you send it to another software. That's the chain. And I explicitly said it. I want text first. I want all the text to be readable. Yes, we're going to use CSV. Yes, it's going to be ugly. Yes, it's going to work. When everything works fine, you can convert to whatever you want else. And I want you to fail fast. I want meaningful code. By setting these base, and there are others, by following the Unix philosophy, all my code now is readable. And this is online if you search, well, probably my name and surname, so F. Contrepois, I'll send it to you at one point, or I'll say, you'll send it somewhere. But the idea is you will see this, it's all documented. There are all the others, and I'm sharing it with everyone. This works brilliantly well. The second part I'd ask was independence. I want each command to be self-contained. I don't want you to go and say, oh, I cannot run this until I have that other things. If you need to communicate, you need to go through that pipe system. And that is by design. It's also because it's a design that's how AWS came to be. AWS came to be, it's called web services. It was when Jeff Bezos said no department will talk to another using anything else than API calls. And every API call does one thing. So Unix does one thing per thing, and you communicate very simply with text. AWS was built on exactly the same principles. So it's quite well tested. No cross import. You don't import between yourself. You just, for now, I prefer a massive, big executable than small thing that share libraries. Okay? If you look at everything you're running on Unix, it's going to be usually what is called statically linked, and they're going to be big. Self-sufficient, bundle all the logic and dependency into the command, standard library first, just use, in this case, Python standard lib or shell standard command before you start to do anything more. And last but not least, don't worry, I'm almost done, interoperability. I want follow the same input and output pattern everywhere. I want, if we're going to say we're going to use CSV, we're going to use CSV absolutely everywhere. Even internally, even externally, even in between, even whatever you want. In this case, as I say, structured data, CSV is the lingua franca. Because I don't have much data, okay, let's be clear. If I had gigs, I would probably use something else, but still, you can send to a pipe, even a Parquet file, no problem. I want the predictable errors, I want documented behavior. Which, by the way, you know when everything is done by an AI system, when you look at the documentation, and it's longer than the code. Okay, when I was doing my documentation, it was 5 lines, if I was lucky. Fortunately, I had other people working, helping me, making it something interesting. So in conclusion, there are 3 things I invite you to do, which will involve you taking more control over your AI system, making sure that you can understand what it does, explain whatever comes out of it to a person. Because I think that's important. We've built so many things. We are at the moment in the happiness of whatever you write is going to build it, and it's going to be super fast and it's going to be super cool. And yeah, but no one understands it. So it's almost like a Macintosh. It works absolutely brilliantly well until it doesn't. And when that doesn't, you have no chance of solving it except with a hammer or a reset. So we're going to get there. And for the fun aspect also, just adding some fun bits. Yesterday, I've decided to be bad. I took a cursor quite often, and I say, I want you to create me a full database engine with all the compatibility of Postgres. Because here we say, hey, they can do everything. The first thing the AI told me, I said, so you want a subset? It was trying to reduce the scope of work already. Oh, that's interesting. I couldn't get it to even agree on a plan that was implementing everything. So there seemed to be a knowledge from AI that they know the limits that they might have. The thing is that we are on the hype system, we don't understand them. We don't have a clue of how much too much is or how little. What can they do easily? What can't they do easily? So I invite you also to search for that. But before you do, think before doing, before committing to anything. Make sure you start setting some clear structures around the thing. Make sure that you understand them, because it's going to be useful when it breaks. And you're going to learn so much more when it breaks. And it's going to be so useful, because you're going to increase your capabilities at the same time as the AI system. And yeah, keep it human. Thank you.
Thank you.